Hey artists! Welcome to another tutorial. Today we're going to be learning how to paint some beautiful brindle fur. Now this is commonly found on different types of dogs, but you can sometimes see it on other animals as well. But here we're going to be working with a short dog fur that has this beautiful brindle pattern. So the colors I'm going to be using here are going to be ivory black, burnt umber, titanium white, and burnt sienna. I'm also going to be using Liquin Original by Windsor & Newton, favorite glazing medium of all time, and a handful of brushes. This tutorial is brought to you by the Wildlife Painting Academy. You can learn more about it in the description of this video. Now, one thing I want to say is I'm working with oils here, but you can definitely get the same effect with acrylics. Highly recommend working with a slow drying medium, but I know you can do it. I did it for years. I worked exclusively with acrylics for years, so that's why I know you can still achieve this look. All right, so I like to start by mapping out the darkest parts of my painting. So here I'm going in with a combination of ivory black and burnt umber, and kind of mapping in not only where those deepest shadows are going to go, but where some of those markings are going to go. So brindle fur typically has a sort of darker base, and then you've got almost like tiger stripes running through it. Sometimes they're not completely defined stripes. They can be kind of broken. They tend to be a bit smaller, but essentially it is kind of like stripes that are going to be running through that pattern. So I'm using my darkest tones first to block out where some of those darkest stripes are going to go, knowing that there's going to be more of the broken stripes, some other patterning going on top. But in this underpainting layer, we're going to keep things nice and simple. So in between, where I still have a blank canvas, that's where I'm going to start to go and place my lighter paint. So this is going to be a bit of titanium white mixed with burnt umber and burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is going to be that sort of rusty color that you see there. Just adds such a beautiful warmth to fur. And then we're still going to be going in with the glaze after, just to make everything look beautiful and vibrant. So here I'm using pretty big brushes. I'm using filbert brushes, which is my all-time favorite shape. And I tend to stick with brushes that are a little on the larger side so I can cover more space without having to focus on detail. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little bit of dry blending. Basically what this is taking a dry paintbrush and we're blending out that underpainting a little bit. So you've got a lot of rough brush strokes happening, and we are using those soft bristles in order to kind of blend them together, making a nice soft fur foundation. And now into that lovely, slightly blurred foundation, I'm gonna go ahead and start to build up some detail. So I'm going in with a slightly smaller brush here. This is still another filbert brush, and I'm just using that knife edge to start to build up some of our fur texture. You can see here, I'm kind of going in between the stripes, but a little on top of the stripes as well. So this is going to be starting to detail the lighter portion of the fur, but it's also going to be starting to detail some of the highlight that is cast onto that fur from whatever the environment will be. So now I'm switching to a slightly smaller brush. This is a round brush here, and I'm starting to build up even more detail, going in with tiny little strokes because the fur here is really short, and just starting to build up that detail. Starting off by working with dark paint, so mostly burnt umber at this point, and just keep going, adding all that detail. This can be a really fun step for some, so put your favorite music on, a good podcast, and just start painting. So now I'm going in with a lighter tone. This is not quite pure white. There's a little bit of burnt umber in there just so it's not super bright yet, But I'm going in with that same small round brush and I'm adding some details in the forms of highlights. This is really going to start to make things pop and tends to be a really fun step, but it's definitely easy to overdo. So just keep in mind and make sure you're not going too hard on the highlights, but still have fun with the process. This is one of my favorite parts. All right, so now we are going to do some glazing. I let my painting dry for a few days so it was completely dry, and now we're going to go ahead and create a really beautiful glaze so we can amp up that color. So I'm using Liquin Original by Windsor and Newton, putting a little blob on my palette, and now I'm going to be adding a tiny little bit of paint. This is going to be a mixture of burnt sienna, burnt umber, and it's just going to create a beautiful wash of a rusty color. And it's just gonna liven everything up in a really beautiful way. So now onto my dry painting, I'm grabbing a large brush and I am applying my glaze. You wanna make sure you have a nice thin layer going on here. And you can see just how much beautiful color that adds without obscuring any of your hard work below. So into that wet glaze layer, this is where I like to work in my final details. Less is more at this stage, but this is where your opportunity is to get in those final details and highlights. You can see I'm working with that tiny little round brush again, just adding that extra little pop to really make this come together. If you want to start learning how to paint realistic wildlife easily, then I think you would love the Wildlife Painting Academy. Get access to on-demand, full-length painting masterclasses, so you can learn how to paint a huge range of animals with my voice and instructions walking you through every moment. You can learn more in the description of this video. And we're done! Hopefully you learned a lot of tips and tricks for how to paint realistic brindle fur. And if you want to learn how to paint other types of fur, I have tons of tutorials on my YouTube channel full of all this great information and tutorials on how to paint different types of fur. So make sure you click the link to go to the next tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Stay magical, my friends.